You have stories from your aspects. I'm going to do aspectology later this month. Uh, Those are, in a way, stories. There's not all aspects, but a lot of the aspects are living out stories. There was a trauma that occurred a while back. It created an aspect. The aspect became what we call gray or even dark, dissociated from you, not liking you for a lot of reasons. That aspect is living a story right now. A lot of you have integrated those aspects, but if you haven't, if there's still some unintegrated, they're not just aspects. They are living their stories. They are going out and exploring the depth of their pain. And it's a good thing you're not aware of that. Some of those stories are exploring how dark is. Some of them are exploring alternative storylines. If I'd have done it this way, how would that have changed things? If I tried this approach, if I hadn't been so stupid, so bad, such a rotten person, so ignorant, what would have happened? You could take any single aspect and they could be living 100 or 1,000 variations of their stories right now. You are so lucky you're not aware at this human level of all of them. It'd be overwhelming. You have stories that are going on right now before you ever came to earth when you were in angelic form. Tobias talked about it in Journey of the Angels, all the things that happened out there. Those stories are going on. And there's not just a single storyline. You could take any particular angelic period or identity that you had, and it's kind of like a past life in a way. It is living out stories, one after the other. What ifs? It's living out the potential of the story of you coming to the planet. It's living out the potential of the story of what if it just goes out of existence. All these are going on right now. Your dreams at night are a series of stories. You tap into them sometimes. You wonder what the hell is going on out there. and you realize so often it's really not me, like me as in the human. I couldn't make up those things if I tried. But yet they're occurring. Where are these coming from? A lot of psychologists, psychiatrists say, well, it's just your overactive mind. No way. These are stories, extensions of you in your dream state that are playing out on many levels. Some levels the human mind is not capable of accessing, because there are some beautiful stories happening out there. But often in the crystalline realms, the mind simply cannot understand them. And so the mind blanks out, it just shuts down. It doesn't even acknowledge. Yet those stories are taking place. You have stories based on your ancestral lineage that are out there right now. That chain, meant in several different meanings of the word, but that chain of your ancestors. And they have stories. I mean, your story on your ancestral lineage that are playing out. At any given moment, you could have thousands, tens of thousands, millions of stories going on all at the same time, all playing out on different levels. It's a beautiful creation of the soul. The soul isn't just right here, right now, sitting here at this shout. The soul, you are here, but yet all of these stories are playing out. And there are many of them, some painful, some beautiful. Ultimately, in a way, it kind of doesn't matter right now other than to realize what's happening. This has been going on for eons of time. You think about all the potential stories. The story of when you were young, got hurt, something happened, you got injured, you broke a bone, you cut yourself, you were bleeding, screaming, maybe had to get stitches. That little trauma point there, it kind of goes off into its own little story and continues to play out. Oftentimes in the story, repeating time and time again what happened. You then sense it in your brain. It's like this thing keeps coming back, this thing that happened to you. But yet that story is out there. What if you had never grabbed that electric wire? Or what if you were killed when you grabbed that electric wire? It is playing out so many levels of your story right now. It's almost overwhelming. But the reason I bring this up, it happens to everybody. Everybody have a multitude of stories. They're there, they're yours, but they're not really yours. They're out there. You can sense the rumbling. You can sense the storylines. You can sense the intensity at times. Everybody has them. But what happens here, the important thing is that, if you look at it, you got all these stories in your orbit, in your energy orbit, swirling around, playing out, and, coming from all different directions, past lives, this lifetime, potential lifetimes. There's so many stories, and it seems like a swirling mess at times. But it's actually a very highly creative thing. I mean, it's intensely creative. That the soul is able to do this, have all these ongoing stories, every story of which the soul is aware of. Well, none of these are outside of the awareness of the soul. Doesn't bother the soul one bit. Doesn't bother, the soul doesn't intervene and say, oh, you better change your story up. The soul isn't trying to manipulate the stories. The soul is watching, observing as all this takes place, and in a way thrilled. It's the expression of the soul. But the soul also knows there is one very important story right now that is really the guiding force for all the rest of these, and it's your lifetime. It's right now. The soul has, it's not that it has favorites, but you're the favorite. you're the center point right now. And imagine all these stories out there acting, living out. And then imagine that suddenly something happens in, let's say, 2023. Something happens. And suddenly, if you imagine every story there's like 1 million sheep out in the pasture, each going its own direction, and some wandering aimlessly, some trying to assemble in little groups or packs, but there's millions of sheep out there all over the pasture, and you look at it and go, oh, what a mess. I'm responsible for all this. But something happens in 2023, and suddenly you have a magic flute in your hands, you, the human, in this lifetime. Whoa, what am I supposed to do with that? You hear this voice from your soul, play it. Play it. Stop looking at it. Stop wondering where it came from. Stop thinking that it's a conspiracy. Play the fucking flute, would you? So you grab the flute. It's like, well, I've never played the flute. And the soul's going, geez, could you just stop making excuses and play the damn flute? So you look at it. You realize you probably need to take a deep breath first. Take a deep breath, and it sounds terrible, of course, but at least you're playing the flute. And all of a sudden you look over, whoa, all these sheep. Suddenly their ears go up. What the hell was that? They're hearing beautiful music, by the way. And you keep playing a little bit more, and the sheep are like, wow. Oh, now, we got our curiosity, and they start kind of, how sheep are. They kind of walk slowly over, and pretty soon you got 1 million sheep all lined up. And suddenly you realize you're the Pied Piper. It's not just a children's story, it's your story. And they're all following you. All of these stories, all the sheep, all the stories that are in your orbit, your past, future stories too. So back to the point here. Life is just a story. And all this is just a story. Tragic at times, painful, blissful at other times, breakthroughs, but it's all just a story. And it's all based on the perspective of the observer, of you. How do you want your story? You feel into it. And you don't need to detail it, and it cannot involve other people. How do you want your story? You could say fulfillment. You could say ease or grace or whatever words you want to use. That is the perspective that I choose. And I choose it clearly, not maybe. I choose it clearly. All you're doing is changing the physics. That's all. This isn't the airy-fairy stuff. You're just changing the physics, the responsive waveforms. That's all you're doing. And this isn't just Adamus physics. This is accepted, mostly accepted physics right now. They're still very confused. They don't understand the role of, on one side, the role of energy, and I'm talking about quantum physicists, going back to Bohr, to Einstein, to some of the others. They never quite understood energy, and they never understood consciousness, but they tried to understand everything in between. And they got very confused, and a lot of debates and arguments. If they would just really understand energy is communications, consciousness is awareness, everything. Everything else in physics makes sense. The conversion of waveforms to particles, particles to reality, reality to what you experience in your story. Isn't that airy-fairy stuff? It's quantum physics. And you can change your story whenever you want. There's no story that's cast in concrete. There's no story that's unchangeable, including this lifetime. You change your perspective, you change your story, and watch how, instead of a million sheep out in the pasture not knowing what the hell's going on, suddenly they're all lined up, following you, getting into alignment with your consciousness, with your enlightenment, your realization. And then one day, as you're playing the flute, walking down the beautiful country road, you decide to take a nap. One day you're taking that nap, and suddenly you wake up and there's no sheep. First thing you think of, damn, the sheep ran off. I'm the shepherd and my sheep ran off. Where in the hell could a million sheep have gone? And then you suddenly realize that you were just in one great big dream. A dream with a million different stories, and each of those stories having a million of their own. You suddenly wake up and you realize they're all integrated right here. They're all here. The soul has no fragments. It is whole. It is complete. Imagine for a moment in your own life, no fragmentation, no pieces ever feeling separate or apart. You never feeling alone. This indeed is sovereignty, openness, freedom of consciousness. But yet in the expansiveness of the soul, it can experience fragments. Through the human expression, it can be both whole and fragmented. This is true expansiveness. As one allows, next comes the integration. Everything brought back into consciousness. There still may be many facets of the self, many different expressions and experiences of the self. But you become conscious and aware of all of them, recognizing all of them as part of you. This is integration. Integration is knowing that every facet, every aspect, every experience is part of you.